Notice, we exterminate all kinds of ghosts. Day and night service.
Hello. Do you chase ghosts?
Do we chase ghosts?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. I'll say we do.
Come quick.
Okay, we'll be right over.
So as Karen and I continued on our nearly 1 week stay in Savannah, Georgia, we knew that we'd have to take one of the famous ghost tours. Now there are literally dozens of ghost tours that are offered in and around the Savannah area. There are tours that take you in and around various cemeteries, walking ghost tours that give you an up-close and personal ghost experience, and also motorized ghost tours that take you on many different haunted attractions. We decided to go with the Ghosts and Gravestones guided motorized tour, which lasts nearly 1 hour and takes you in and around Old Town Savannah and also allows you to get off your guided tour bus to explore inside some of the famous historical buildings in Savannah. By some accounts, Savannah is the most haunted city in America. One of the oldest cities in America, Savannah has been witness to 2 large-scale wars, that being the Revolutionary War and the Civil War, along with numerous Indian conflicts and even murderous pirates that used to sail up and down Georgia's coast. There have even been outbreaks of plague, such as yellow fever and several large-scale fires which scorched plenty of the city. And speaking of yellow fever, have you ever heard of the term a dead ringer? The term in fact originated from Savannah during the yellow fever outbreak. So many people were dying of yellow fever and there was such a rush to bury the dead that sometimes people were inadvertently buried a little bit, how shall we say, too quick. It turns out that some people were stricken with yellow fever, gave the actual appearance of being dead, when in reality they were in a comatose state. The townfolk, believing that these people were in fact dead and wanted to get them buried as quickly as possible to slow the spread of the yellow fever, buried them as quickly as they could. When a few of these folks were heard literally screaming from the grave, "Help me, help me," that's when people in Savannah knew something had to be done. So a bell was attached to the coffin that hovered above the actual gravesite by several feet, with the trigger mechanism to pull the bell located inside the coffin itself. That way, if someone was just in a comatose state but was inadvertently buried too quick, the thought process was they could literally awake from the dead, ring the bell, and they would be rescued. Hence the term dead ringer, and it originated right here in Savannah. So stick around as we take you on a ghost tour in the most haunted city in America.
That is except for one couple. For my paranormal friends, you'll know who I am talking about. But for those of you who don't know, Ed and Lorraine Warren are very famous in the paranormal community, being some of the first to investigate the Amityville horror case. And their lives have inspired movies like The Conjuring and Annabelle, and most recently, the Nun movies. Now, during their stay here in Savannah decades ago, the place they wanted to investigate most was the Pirate's House. And they did receive permission from the manager to do so. They also invited a local medium to come and join them. Well, the night of the investigation, the medium found himself running slightly behind schedule, so he calls up a friend and asks for a ride to the Pirate's House as quickly as they could get here. Upon arrival, he sees 3 figures in one of the upstairs window, looking out into the streets at him, thinking, uh-oh, they've started without me. So he rushes inside and runs smack dab into Ed and Lorraine downstairs. Apparently he wasn't the only one running late. The manager was as well, and hadn't been there to unlock the usually forbidden upstairs. So the question is, who or what was looking out in the streets at them? Decided to close Colonial Park and open Laurel Grove Cemetery in 1853, when new burials were bringing up the previous interments. Now, as we pass by, you'll see these little brick buildings scattered amongst all the headstones. These are what we call family crypts. Here, a family would be interred inside together forever. For a family who decays together, stays together. You actually see one of the crypts actually right here. You're thinking, oh, well, why is it out of the fence? Let me give you a little tidbit, guys. The fence is actually a more recent addition. It was actually put up in the 1930s. But the cemetery itself once extended a block and a half larger in every direction. So you know what that means, you guys? We're driving here with the dead. Because we don't move bodies. We never do.
It's not considered, it's the end of spring, so nothing's in bloom anymore. Unfortunately, it was gorgeous when everything was in bloom down here. Alright guys, if y'all don't mind going ahead and go all the way in, just try to scoot all the way in, and actually when we shut this door behind y'all, then y'all can just move back if you want.
Who wants to die first? No volunteers? Maybe next time. I'll be heading out this door.
Oh, y'all welcome to the family parlor? Well, that's the family parlor. I apologize. This is a formal parlor. This is where they would spend all their time as a family, and this is where they would receive all their guests. Well, the fireplace here is actually the man I'm about to tell you about. That's Andrew Lowe. Now, Andrew came to Savannah as a young 17-year-old to work in his uncle's cotton business. He would actually take over the family business himself and became very well-to-do in his own right. So much, he commissioned John Norris to complete his masterpiece house here. But he would not find much happiness in this home. Uh-oh. This is a good house. No, I'm just kidding. Before the completion of the house, he'd actually lose his first wife, Sarah Cecil Hunter, and their 4-year-old son. Although he would go on to marry 5 years later to Mary Cooper Stiles, which is actually the lovely lady over there, and the same lady over there. It's the same portrait, they just have 2 different sizes. That's how you know they're rich. Actually, longer than the family, Tom lived here the longest. So we think a lot of the activity is actually him, especially in the downstairs areas, which is now just offices and archives for the home. There was one staff member who liked to come in a little later than normal. She'd get here about 11 o'clock every single afternoon. But then again, she also stayed later than everybody else. Well, when they would leave, they would lock up the home, and she'd always hear the pacing of heavy footsteps going throughout the hallways. Thinking someone got in. She called her husband one time because this made her very uncomfortable. As soon as he got here, they saw no sign of disturbance whatsoever. We just think it's Tom trying to replay his life here.
God! Who are you people? Okay, it was a rhetorical question anyway. You ain't supposed to be back here, you know that. Didn't you see the sign out there that said private, keep out? People nowadays have no respect for nothing or nobody. And look at you here, look around. Yes, what a pitiful looking lot you are. Yes, pitiful. Most of you look like you've never worked a single day in your entire life. Not like the man in that picture up there. That's Henry Willing. Now believe me, there ain't a one of you in here that want to be in his shoes. And I'll tell you why. Because he's been dead about 140 years, that's why. Yeah, longer than I've been dead. Yeah. It's a joke, okay? But Henry Willing, he was a great shipbuilder here, but he had a lot of tragedy in his life. Married 3 times. That's for me, take a message, okay? He's married 3 times, and you know what happened to his wives, huh? They all died. Yeah, his first wife, visiting him at the doctor, tripped over something, fell in that river and drowned, and was swept away, never seen again. Second wife died from the devil's disease, yellow fever. And his third wife, she just up and died one day for no reason at all. But after the war between the states, Henry's 2 sons returned home, and he thought certainly he would pass his shipbuilding legacy on to them. But that all changed. In the early morning hours of May 1866, as his son Alexander made his way to work down by the river, he came upon some men that were trying to load heavy cargo on a ship. But it seems as though that load had found the rope in the rigging, how the boom, and it would not move. So Alexander went over and he scaled that towering derrick. He shimmied his way out on that boom, and he wrestled with it and wrestled with it, but it wouldn't move. He decided then to come back down, and as he slowly made his way down, his father Henry stood on that dock, looking up at his son, and just as he thought that boy made it to safety, the load shifted again. I saw you over here. Yeah. Your mind said go and your feet said no. Alexander fell to that dock below, crushing his bones and cracking his skull. The poor boy lay on his deathbed nearly 4 hours before he drifted off into eternity. Now.
So before closing out this video, we wanted to pass along our impressions of the Ghosts and Gravestones tour, and if you're in the Savannah, Georgia area, should you take it? Now keep in mind, this is just an opinionated question. I'm sure there are plenty of folks that have gone on some of these tours, and some like them and some don't. And just like everyone else, we all have our own opinions. I've probably been on a half a dozen ghost tours around the United States, and I absolutely love them. You learn so much about the history about these cities and communities that taking ghost tours is actually a lot of fun and is quite an educational experience. However, if we had to do it all over again, we would probably not take the Ghost and Gravestones tour, and would probably not recommend it to any of our friends either. It's not that the tour was bad, it's just that it was crowded, it was at times difficult to hear, and we just didn't get the historical vibe that we had in previous ghost tours. One of our last ghost tours before Savannah was in Fredericksburg, Texas, and that was an absolute blast. But as Karen and I talked about it, we realized that that ghost tour in Fredericksburg was a walking ghost tour. It was a much more slower pace. You got to interact with the actual guides, ask more questions, and it just seemed like it was a little bit more spookier walking down the alleys and darkened streets rather than taking a tour bus on a crowded, busy street. So although we did not take an actual walking tour in Savannah, I think that based upon what we experienced on this tour and what we'd previously experienced in Fredericksburg, we think a walking tour would probably be a better experience. And if you like this video or any of our previous videos, don't forget to like and subscribe on Blue Line RV Adventures. And remember, at Blue Line RV Adventures, we got your 6.